So it is the end of March, and that means it is time for the monthly reading wrap up. I'm so excited to be talking about all the books that I read this month. I read a lot of really good books. I found an amazing series, and I found just another series to get myself into and everything. And I'm so excited to talk about every single one of them. So this month I read 15 books. A lot of them were on my Kindle though. I think about like 10 of them were on my Kindle, and then the rest of them I actually read the paperbacks too. I have them all on my phone, all of my notes and everything, so we're just gonna dive right on into it and start talking about all the books that I read this month. So the first book that I read this month was The Problem Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I gave this one a 3.75 out of 5. It was not my favorite book that I read this month. I was kind of in a reading slump at the beginning of the month, and this was the book that I was reading during that time, trying to get out of my slump, but not really in love with this book. I think if I were to read it again, I would like it a lot more. It did almost make me cry though. I will say that. It's definitely one of those books that if you cry easily to books, you will cry to this one. I freaking love Mallory, and I don't know, I wasn't in love with it, but I loved it enough to enjoy it. But this book follows Mallory and Ryder. It's childhood friends to lovers. It's super good. You see them kind of growing up in this foster home together, and then they're separated and they find their way back to each other, and it's just their little love story of how they find each other again and how they are just so different than they were growing up. And it's not just about their love story either. I find this book to be a lot about the growth of Mallory herself as well, because she went through some really tough things, some things that traumatized her and everything, and it's her learning and going through that as well. So yeah, if you're not looking for just a romance read, pick this one up. It's really good. So that was the first book that I read this month, and then the second one, it took me absolutely forever to read it, is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This has been on my TBR for the longest time since I started reading, basically, because there was I remember there was this whole wave about people loving this book and everything, and it is still definitely loved, but I understand why, and I'm so excited to get my hands on Love on the Brain, her next book that is going to be coming out in this little series. I love it. It's so good. But I gave this book a 4 out of 5. It was not a 5 out of 5 exactly for me. I felt there were just some things that were kind of loose ends and weren't really talked about, and there were some things I was okay, that could have been handled better or whatever. And I also don't really like third person. I can appreciate it and it's still really good, but third person is definitely not my favorite point of view to read from. But I did devour this entire book. I literally started it at maybe 10 p.m. and then I stayed up till 2 a.m. to finish it. Yeah, it was really good. Just his part, Adam's part, I wasn't exactly expecting what we learn at the end. I was just oh my gosh, wait, that's kind of interesting. I need to know more. Olive's a little quirky girl, whatever, and Adam's so grumpy. It's very Grumpy Sunshine. It's fake dating. I didn't exactly understand the whole entire fake dating part, but it was still good nonetheless. Yeah, I did really like this one. And then we're gonna get on to a big chunk of Kindle reads for the month. I read a lot of books on my Kindle towards the middle of the month. So the first one that I read was Hooked by Emily McLarty. I don't know. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. It was not my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. I personally do not love the whole entire kidnapping thing. I don't like that. It bothers me. I don't really like it. I felt there were some things in the book that I was just very confused about, and I didn't really like it. I was just okay, why are you doing this? I don't understand the point to this. I enjoyed it enough to give it a 3, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was just kind of okay, it's there. I read it. Moving on. All right, and then I read a big old series on my Kindle, and that is the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Like. I read all 6 books in the span of 7 days. Yeah, I am literally obsessed with this entire series. I know that she does have her spin-off series, which is their kids, and the Kingmaker series. They're in basically Hogwarts, but for mafia families. Yeah. I will be reading that one. I don't want to start it just yet. I don't know. I felt I was in that world for so long, and I felt I got to know everybody, and I don't really want to get into their kids' lives yet. I kind of want to just take a break from it, and then I want to go back to it pretty soon. We're going to talk about the Brutal Birthright series first. So the first book that I read was Brutal Prince. I gave this one a 3 out of 5, but basically this one follows Callum and Ada. You have the Griffins and the Gallows. Basically, they are mafia families. They're rivals. They hate each other, but they want to tie their families together. But that's where Ada and Callum comes in. They have an arranged marriage, they get married, and it's basically them trying to not kill each other. So it's an enemies to lovers, it's mafia, it's whatever. I didn't love the first book. I was not into it a whole lot, but I do get into it by the third book. I don't know, I feel like if I was to go back and reread the first one, I would like it a lot more because I love the way that you see Ada and Callum in the later books. I do love their story as I get more into the series, but my first original rating of it was 3 out of 5, but it was still good. And then the second book that I read was Stolen Heir. Now this one follows Nessa and Miko. Miko is, I believe, Russian or Polish, something like that, and Nessa is obviously the Irish family, which is the Gallows. Remember how I said I don't like the kidnapping trope? That's what this book is entirely. It's basically Beauty and the Beast retelling. I did not like it. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 as well. I did enjoy it to a certain extent. I like the idea of Nessa being like very protected and very like just, she's 19, she's a ballerina. I think it's cute, and she doesn't really know exactly what her family does. She only knows to like a certain extent, which I kind of like how she just is in her own little bubble, and Miko is like very in his little mafia because he's like the boss guy, whatever. And I do like that whole entire two different dynamic kind of trope, but I just don't like the whole entire kidnapping thing. But I do absolutely love the character development that is in this book, and that is what makes up for it. So I do recommend reading this one. It was pretty good, but the only thing that like made it good for me was the character development. So the third book in this series that I read was Savage Lover. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. So good. Basically James Bond meets Fast and Furious is how it's described, and I will say that's exactly what this book is. This one follows Nero and Camille. Nero is, don't exactly remember which one he is, but he's in one of the mafia families. Camille is not. She is basically a mechanic, does pretty much everything for her and her brother and her dad. And Nero is just some playboy who gets whatever he wants, does whatever he wants, and likes cars. So I really love this book. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. Honestly, if I did not like this book, if I rated it another 3 out of 5, I probably wasn't going to finish the series. But the fact that like this book it just solidified that I wanted to read this series. It was actually getting really good at this point. There was kind of just an overall kind of plot line starting to build in this book that like carried on through the rest of them. So I really like that. They had a connection from the start. He was so drawn to her and she was so drawn to him, whether they wanted to fight it or not, and the way that he protected her was absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's all I have to say for the third book. Now the fourth one, however, Bloody Heart, I gave this a 5 out of 5. This book absolutely made the series like so much better. So you have Dante and Simone. It is a second chance romance. Oh my gosh, guys, it's so good. Dante, I don't remember if he's a Gallo or a whatever the else. I absolutely hate Simone's parents for what they did to her and what they did to Dante, but she's keeping like a huge secret from him, and that's like why she leaves. And then you see her come back and you see them just like absolutely still be in love with each other even after 9 years of being apart. And Dante's like very grumpy. He's very grumpy in every single one of the books, but whenever he gets back with Simone, it's just like the earth is like going good again, you know what I mean? Like she is just like his light and his darkness, and I freaking loved it. So good. 5 out of 5. One of the best second chance romances that I've ever read in my entire life. And then right after that one we have Broken Vow. This is another 5 out of 5 book for me, and this one we get Riona and Raylan. Raylan is kind of like brother's best friend-ish, and Riona is a lawyer. She's a very strong female. She doesn't want help from anybody, but Raylan has to come in and protect her and be her bodyguard for a while. So it's bodyguard, forced proximity, kind of brother's best friend. This is like opposite attract. It is grumpy sunshine, but like she's grumpy and he's so sunshine, and you see just the tug and pull between the both of them. He's like, let me take care of you, and she's like, no, absolutely not. So good. Literally so good. I would do anything for this country man. Anything. Like, girl, if you don't want him, I'll take him. I just love the story. I really wanted more of them too, but that's okay. We got a lot of them. And then the last book in this series is Heavy Crown. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. Honestly, I did not like it. I expected so much more from Sebastian's story. I don't know, I thought it was going to be very enemies to lovers because you have Yelena and Sebastian. Sebastian is like one of the main families, and Yelena, her family's trying to like knock them out of the whole entire thing or whatever, and I just expected like the perfect enemies to lovers, and it just did not serve. I don't know. I expected her to be like a very strong female character because that's how all the other characters are, and just she wasn't. She was like very much, Sebastian, protect me, and he was like, yeah, I'll do it, but it just didn't hit right. I don't know. So in like every single one of the books, you get a sprinkle of like each character from like the last books or whatever, like each little couple, but in this one you only see the three other ones. Like you don't see any of Raylan and Riona, which I understand, like we just got a book from them, but like they weren't even mentioned not once in the entire book, and I was honestly kind of disappointed from that, especially whenever we got to see the rest of them. But it's fine. I don't know, I just didn't have a connection to this book. It didn't really hit the way that the other ones did, and I was honestly kind of disappointed because I expected this story to end off in like a really strong book, but it's fine, you know. I still recommend reading this series because it's really not like a super dark one, and that's something that I very much enjoyed. Like I wasn't sitting there being like, okay, I'm gonna DNF this. Like I was genuinely very much into each character's love story. If you guys are looking for a good mafia series, start off with this one. It's really, really good. So I know I rambled about an entire series just now, but then I have a duet that I want to talk about. This is the Dark First. I know that there's going to be 5 books total in this entire series. There's 4 out, but each of them are a duet. So the duet that I read was The Predator and the Reaper. The next 2 books I believe are his brothers, Tristan Kane's brother, and then I'm pretty sure the 5th one is going to be like a wrap-up book of all of them. But I only read the first 2, which is on the first brother, which is Tristan Kane and Morana's story. You know how I was saying that the last book, Heavy Crown, was not like enemies to lovers? It's not what I thought it was going to be. It's not like the perfect enemies to lovers. Well, this one is. Literally, you get the whole entire scene where like they have like knives at each other's throat. That scene, I knew it was going to be like the perfect enemies to lovers from there, and it was. It just was so good. Like there were so many twists and turns. There was so much like backstory, which I very, very, very much appreciated. There was so much detail. There's not like a whole bunch of dialogue in this book, but honestly, it's so good. It is so good. The detail is absolutely amazing. I love the way it was written. These 2 books, literally so good. Literally so good. Both of them were a 5 out of 5 read for me. I could not get enough. The way that he protects her, even though they hate each other, the way that they start to fall in love, the way that she's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, whatever. It's enemies to lovers, but like they team up against like one big kind of secret type of thing, and it's just so good. And the way that they both like make each other choose like them and everything, I don't know, literally so good. They're also both so loyal to each other, which I very much appreciate. Those are all the books that I read on my Kindle so far, but we're gonna take a break from the Kindle and we're gonna finish talking about all the books that I read on paperback. So going back into paperbacks, the first one that I picked up after my Kindle was The Score by Elle Kennedy. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I love Allie and Dean. I'm not gonna talk too much about this series, just I love them. I love the way that she found herself. I love the way that he kind of turned from being like a player to like love her. I also had this problem with every single one of Elle Kennedy's books, and that's just she kind of makes the guy go on and on about how he's like a player and all that kind of stuff. Didn't enjoy that part of the book, but it was still really good. And then right after that, I picked up The Goal. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. I thought I would like it a lot more, but I just didn't. I do love Tucker though. Sabrina was the one that I just personally did not like, did not connect with her. Do love Tucker. Love me some Countryman. But Sabrina, she just didn't do it for me. I just wasn't a fan of her character at all. She was very, very stubborn, but to the point where it got annoying. That's all I have to say about this book. I am excited to read The Legacy though. So yeah, that's all I have to say. And then going right back to my Kindle, I'm just going to talk about one book for a second, and that is Wrecked by Lauren Asher. I did read this one. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Jax and Elena's story, absolutely amazing. The character development in this book, amazing. It's just such like a pull and push type of book, but it's so good. It's enemies to lovers. It's really great. It's forced proximity. Yeah. Jax treated her so badly in the beginning though, like truly, and then he said some hurtful stuff and I was like, I hate you. But then he made up for it. And then I love him, and I also love his family. So yeah, Wrecked by Lauren Asher, really amazing. So after that, I decided to finally get into the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher, and I read The Fine Print. I finished this one yesterday. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I did really love this book, but there were some parts where I was also like, okay, where's like the connection? Because as much as like they had a connection, they also kind of didn't, because at the beginning their only connection was like he was just drawn to like how she looked and everything, and then he got to know her, and then it was like, okay, now they actually have a connection. I did really like it. I did enjoy it. Rowan and Zara are beautiful. He could have been a little bit more nice though, and she didn't have to fall for him right away, which I thought was kind of weird, because she like really fell for him like as soon as he started talking. I was like, okay, he's not that cute. But then he did make up for it. He groveled a lot in this book, and he very much showed her that he wanted to be with her in this book, which I very much appreciated. It was still really good, and the ending kind of made up for the lack in the beginning. But I did really enjoy this book, so if you're looking for like just something to pick up and quickly read, get this one. So I know I talked a lot, and I'm really sorry about that, but I had to talk about all my books, guys. Those are all the books that I read in March. If there are any books that you guys want to see me do a reading vlog of, or any books that you guys would like to know my opinions of, comment them down below. I'll get right on that. I'll read them, especially if they're on the Kindle, because I'm trying not to buy books at all right now, which is really hard, but I'm trying to. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoy this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and comment down below a book that you read this month. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.